Today's topic we will be seeing about sampling methodology and also about the statistics and statistical tests. So I have just broken the seminar or the presentation into two different parts. So in the part A we will be seeing about the sampling methodology. The main objective of this presentation is to help you to write your basic science exams for the first year's postgraduates and also to employ the knowledge that you gain from this particular topic during your research like thesis and other short terms. So these will be the contents under which we will be covering the topic, a basic introduction about what is sampling and what is the need for the sampling, then few terminology so that we will be getting more accustomed with the concept of sampling, and finally a few references. So to give an introduction about sampling, most of us do this process of sampling in our day-to-day activities. While you think about your mom, she does it in the morning. When she cooks, she just takes a few pieces of whatever she cooks and then puts in her mouth to find if the taste is proper and if the salt is adequate. When we go out with our friends to ice cream parlor, we just ask them for some samples so that we taste before we purchase something, and then to not waste our money in the process of purchasing a whole cup of ice cream and then finding that the taste is not good or we don't like it. So this process of sampling is going to help us in restricting the number of samples that we are going to select, and also to restrict the number of the amount of time that we are going to spend in doing the research. And also it is going to be helpful, or the number of samples that we are selecting is sufficient enough to give a valid results. That is, just by selecting a small spoon of ice cream we can find out whether the whole tub of ice cream is really tasty or the taste is not that good. So this is what is basic about the sampling. And there are a few questions which might help you to think what is the importance of sampling. The first thing is, will it be possible for me to find out, to go door to door to each and every person in India and to estimate the prevalence of oral cancer? No, it's absolutely not possible, because India is a country which has a very large population, and for me to go and knock each person's house is not literally possible thing. And the second thing is, if I want to test the efficiency of a new mouthwash in reducing periodontitis, do I need to find each and every person who's having periodontitis and give the mouthwash to him and then find out whether it is effective or not? No, that is also not possible. So these are all the few questions which might help us to understand the importance of the sampling. Now, what is basically the need for sampling? First thing is, always the population is infinite. The world is full of people. When we need to do some ecological study, there are different countries, the air quality is different in different places. When we need to do some studies with water, water is enormous, and all those things show that world has infinite resources, and it is not possible for a single person or a researcher to study each and every one of those things and then to come up with a conclusion. So first thing is, because the population is infinite, we need a sample of the infinite population. The second thing is, it is very time consuming for me to go and find out each and every person and then to read about each and every person. So definitely I need to restrict the number of people whom I'm going to study. And the third thing is, when I'm able to get the same result which I will get by reading each and every person in the world, just by reading 100 people, why shouldn't I take it? Because it is easy for me to select the 100 people or the representative of the population, study them, and then I can generalize the whole result to the whole world. And also it is easy in terms of supervising the research when we are including only selected number of people. So these are all the basic needs which shows us that we should go for a proper sample. Now that we have seen about the needs and the basic introduction of sampling, before going actually into the different types of sampling method, we will learn a few terminologies which will help us to write our article as well as to um, write the essay question that is being asked in our exam. So the first one is sampling. That is, the process by which we are going to select the samples is known as sampling. And sampling frame is the whole population or the set of people or the elements or the households that is there as our study subjects. And then comes the sampling unit. That is the smallest non-divisible part. Example, an individual person. When you want to read about a person, an individual person becomes a sampling unit. When you want to read about the individual teeth, then the teeth becomes a sampling unit, which cannot be further divided into smaller parts. And the final one is the sample. That is a finite subset of the population or a portion that is chosen from a defined population is called as a sample. That is whomever we are going to include in our study, the group of people who are going to include in our study is known as a sample. So just for a recall, the method by which we are going to select the samples is known as sampling, and samples are the subjects who are being included in our study. Sampling unit is the smallest part of the sample, that is individual person or individual tooth from the sample, and sampling frame is a whole lot of population, so that is a bigger part. So from the sampling frame, we will be selecting the sample, and from the sample, we will have individual sampling units. Then we will see about what are all the factors that determine a proper sampling methodology. The first one is the representativeness. So when we see the first image, we can see that initially only red colored dressed people are being selected. So it is not a proper representativeness. Whereas in the second one, red colored dress wearing people are completely eliminated. Whereas in the third one, we can see people with dress people wearing dresses with color red, green, blue, yellow, and then um, other things. So in this way, we should select population which is or a sample which is representative of the sampling frame. The second thing is a unbiased selection. That is, whenever we are going to select a group of people, we should not be biased. I like this person, so I will select him. Or this person will give me all the favorable results, so I will select him. So just by employing some amount of ideas, or just by thinking that this person will be favoring my study, I should not select the population. And also selecting study population should not be based on any kind of other discrimination like blacks or whites, or based on any caste or gender. So all those things should not be completely followed when we are going to select a sample. And the final one is the adequacy. That is, even though we follow a proper sampling methodology and doing all those things, we should have adequate number of samples. We cannot say that out of total Indian population, I will select only 1% to find out the prevalence of the oral cancer. So that is also not possible. So we should take adequate number of people. Maybe from each state, I should select these many number of people so that I can come up with the overall prevalence rate for the oral cancer in India. So these are all the three factors: representativeness, unbiased selection, and adequacy. Now that we have seen a basic introduction about the sampling, we will go into the different types of sampling methods, which is a very important 10-mark question for the exam going batch. So the first one is known as the probability sampling, in which each member of a population has an equal chance of being selected, and it provides the most valid and a credible result. And always we can make sure that it is a proper representative of the population. Whereas the non-probability sampling, it does not give equal chance for every person to be included in our study, so that it is not a true representative of the population, and also it is less desirable when compared to that of the probability sampling. So that is, whenever I am not able to adapt to a probability sampling method, I go in for a non-probability sampling. So inside the probability sampling methods, we have five. That is the simple random sampling, systematic random sampling, stratified random sampling, cluster random sampling, and then the multi-phase or the multi-stage random sampling. Simple random sampling is the most common as well as the most important method of random sampling methods, which will be used for other samplings also. So in this sampling method, each and every unit or element in the population has an equal chance of being included in the study. Simple random sampling can be done just by using a lottery method. So just write in the chits 50 names of all the 50 people who are there in a classroom, and then put it in a bowl. And then we will ask a person to select 10 people randomly or 10 sets randomly. So those 10 people will be included in the study. So this is one of the method by which we can conduct a simple random sampling using lottery method. The other methods includes table of random numbers and computer generated simple random. So for example here, a researcher wants to know the efficiency of a mouthwash in rheumatoid arthritis patients. and it was calculated or decided that 45 patients would be enough for conducting that particular study. Then the researcher has to prepare a complete list of patients who are eligible for the study, and this list is known as a sampling frame. So that is people who are having this rheumatoid arthritis is the sampling frame. So let us assume that there are 200 patients in the sampling frame, or we have prepared a list of 200 people. Now we need to select only 45 people from the 200. So we can either go with the lottery method. As we have seen earlier, we can write the name of all the 200 people and then put it in a bowl, which can be mixed, and then we can take 45 slips from that particular bowl. Or we can go for computer generated random numbers. These are all few sites which might help you in generating. So that is, we will write the name of 200 people and then it will randomly pick 45 numbers. So we can just pick out the people with those particular numbers to be included in our study. The basic merits and demerits of this method is that personal bias will always be eliminated using a simple random sampling, because we don't know whose name will be written in that particular set. And random sample is it is generally a representative of the population, and also this methodology is being used for the forthcoming methods. The demerit is that we need to have a complete list of the people. Whenever we have to collect samples from geographically distinct areas and other things, we will not have the complete list. So we cannot make a lottery, or we cannot feed the list to the computer and then select random number of uh, random numbers and other. The second method is known as a systematic random sampling. This is one way of conveniently selecting samples, and it will help us to select samples at uniform intervals. What we have to do here is that we need to arrange the samples based on their name or based on their roll number in either ascending or a descending order, and then finally we need to select them in particular intervals, for say every fifth patient, or for say every fifth person enrolled in that particular class will be selected in that study. But how do we arrive at that fifth or fourth person? So we will see it in the forthcoming. So here the methodology is that we need to identify the sample size, and then we need to put the population in a sequential order, either in ascending or a descending order. Then we need to identify the total number of units in the population, that is the sampling frame, which is represented as capital N here. Then we need to divide the capital N, that is the sampling frame, divided by our sample size, which will give us a number that is known as the sampling interval. So in the previous example, I have said you right, for say every fifth patient or the fourth patient. So to calculate that fifth or the fourth, that is known as K here, we have followed the procedure. So we will take the previous scenario only, that is the case of periodontal disease and rheumatoid arthritis patients. In the previous example, we have mentioned that we have a list of 200 people. So our sampling frame or the capital N becomes 200 here, and then 45 is the sample size that we wanted to achieve, so 45. So if we divide 200 by 45, I reach a number of 4.4, which can be rounded as 4. So thus here we can see that every fourth patient out of the 200 will be selected to achieve a desired sample of 45. So in the previous sampling method, I said that this simple random sampling will be employed in all the other sampling methods, right? So the same way, what here we are going to do is we need to write a chit from 1 to 4, and then we need to draw a random number using a simple random method. So if the number that we draw is 2, the first patient that we will include is second patient, then we should just add it by 4, sixth patient, 10th patient, 14th patient, and so on till we have a desired number of 45. So here the example that they have given is from random, employing a simple random sampling method, they have derived a number of 2. So we will take every fourth patient from number 2 to be included in our study. So 2, 4, 10, 14, and so on patients will be included in the study. Still we have 45 number of. The third method is known as stratified random sampling. So in this stratified random sampling, we will be dividing the sampling frame into small subgroups based on either gender or based on their socioeconomic status or some other thing. So the problem here is that we need to have a basic information about the population already, so that we will break them into different groups or known as strata, and from each stratum we need to employ the simple random sampling method to select the individual patients. So here we will just take the example of there are two methods basically of a stratified random sampling, which is known as the unequal size or also proportional stratified random sampling, or the equal size. So first we will see the example of the unequal size. A researcher wants to measure the overall health status among workers in a cotton mill. So he has a total of 500 workers where they can be divided into a sample of 21 to 31 years or 31 to 40 years. So I basically have the data of the age of each and every patient collected from the industry's office. So I have that particular data. So I group them into different strata or subgroups based on their age group. So in this example, the population size is 500 and the desired sample size that I need to achieve is 50. Now I need to calculate something known as a sampling fraction, which can be derived by dividing the sample size divided by the total population size, which is 50 divided by 500, that is 0.1. So number of samples from each strata can be calculated by number in each strata into the sampling fraction. In this example, we have seen that the different age groups are divided, and in the first age group 110 people are there. So I need to multiply the 110 into 0.1, which is 11. And in the second strata there are 100 and 140, 80 and 70. So I will multiply each of them with 0.1, wherein I have the number of people to be taken into my study from different groups. So I will select 11 people aging between 21 to 30, 10 people from 31 to 40, 14 people from 41 to 50, 8 people from 51 to 60, and 7 people from 61 to 70. So here we need to do the other way around. That is, we need to divide the total number of subjects needed divided by the number of subgroups that we have. So we have 5 different subgroups, or we have classified people into 5 groups based on their age. So totally I need 50 samples from 5 age groups. So 50 divided by 5 is equal to 10. So according to this, I need to select 10 patients from each subgroup to have a derived sample size of 50. So the main difference between the previous disproportionate and the proportionate sampling is that in disproportionate sampling method or the equal sampling method, we will have equal number of people from each subgroup. Whereas in the proportionate sampling method, we will have people based on the number of people in that individual subgroup. The other one is known as the cluster sampling method, which is also known as area sampling or block sampling. So population that is being sampled is divided into groups called the clusters, and each cluster will be a representative of the population, and we will randomly select the clusters, not the individual patient. So for an example, if you want to know the prevalence of smoking among auto drivers in Bhimvaram, we don't have to go and then collect a list of all the auto drivers in Bhimvaram, and then we need to do a random sampling or a simple random sampling method. What we can do is we can just like that spot out different auto stands which are located in Bhimvaram, and we can consider each and every auto stand as a individual cluster. And now we need to employ the simple random sampling in selecting the clusters, and every auto driver who is there in that particular cluster will be included in the study. The other two methods of random sampling method include multi-stage and multi-phase random sampling. So this is nothing but an extension of the previous all 4 methods of random sampling. In the multi-stage random sampling, we will do sampling into different stages. For say if we need to study the attitude of dental students who are there in India, then what we do is that we need to collect the list of dental surgeons or dental colleges in India, and then we need to select 2 different states for say like Andhra and Telangana or Andhra and Tamil Nadu by employing a simple random sampling. And from the states, we need to identify how many dental colleges are there. And from the dental colleges, again, if there are 30 dental colleges together in Andhra and India, we need to employ again a simple random sampling method to select the number of colleges that we need to study in. And finally, if there are only two colleges where we need to study in that two colleges, we need to collect the name list of the students and then employ a systematic random sampling or a clustered random sampling in finding out the total number of people or in identifying the subjects to be employed in our study. So in this method, the sampling method is being done at different stages wherein we take a whole unit and then start sampling from the whole unit to derive at the individual person or the sampling unit. So as I have stated earlier, we can see here very clearly that we divide the population into states and then into different colleges or districts, and then we go into the individual. Yeah. The other method is known as a multi-phase random sampling. For say if we are going to do a study to find out the effectiveness of fluoride mouthwashes, and my inclusion criteria or one of the way that I need to include people is that is people who are having a DMFT score less than 2. I will screen 90 people, and from the 90 people I will gather only the people who are having the selection criteria, and then I will go and then do the subphase of the classification. So this is known as a multi-phase random sampling. So we will see here in what scenarios what sampling methodology can be best used. Simple random sampling can be used when the whole population is available. Stratified can be used when the subgroups are being available or we have a basic information about the previous group. And systematic random sampling can be done when we have a total list of the people whoever is being enrolled in the study. And finally, clustered sampling can be done when we have to do or conduct the study in different geographical. In non-probability, there is no equal chances of being selected by each and every person. Then it will be selected based on the convenience of the examiner, so that the cost involved will be very less in doing the sampling procedure. And finally, we cannot generalize the results that is being derived from selecting population using a non-probability sampling. The types include accidental or convenience, judgmental or purposive, quota sampling, and network or ball sampling. So in convenience sampling, we just look for our convenience and then select every person based on our convenience. So for say if let us just take the example of Vishnu Dental College here. There are different entrances for Vishnu Dental College. If I need to assess the attitude of people studying in Vishnu Dental College, and I have access to one particular entrance only, or that is very close to the dental college, so I can just wait there near the entrance and then give my pro forma to every person who is exiting or entering to the entrance to fill it. So that is because I am very convenient with it, and I know that the students that are going to come through that particular gate will be more cooperative to me. So that is one way of conducting a convenience sampling. The second one is purposive sampling. That is, I will know that these people will be responding in a very positive manner to me. So I will select only those people to be included in my study. For say if I am taking a class today and then I know that these particular students they already like me very much. So while I want to collect the feedback, I will give only the feedback form to those people so that I will get a very good remark for my class. The third one is known as the quota sampling. This is somewhat similar to that of the stratified sampling, in which we need to divide people into different subgroups or strata or proportions, and then we need to select them. But in this case, we need to select them not based on any simple random sampling. We can just select the people however we like. And the final one is known as a snowball sampling. When we want to study about some disease or some conditions which are not socially acceptable or which is of more stigma in the society, we can adopt this snowball sampling, in which we will just approach a single patient who is smoking. For say, smoking prevalence of smoking in among dental students. If I want to conduct a study, then most of the students will feel very awkward to come and then say themselves that they are smoking. So what I can do is I can just identify one student who is smoking, and he will give, sir, that person is also smoking, so that I'll go and then include them into the study, rather than people themselves accepting and coming and then getting enrolled in our study, we need to find out them based on the lead given by the first person. So this can be used in studying some things related to HIV, wherein we will not have a very clear data and people are so much stigmatized so that they don't give the data just like that. Finally, we will just try to recap within 2 minutes what we have seen in the sampling. Why sampling is basically needed? Because we cannot study all the population and population is always infinite. Then we can have the desired result within desired result by selecting a smaller number of population, and it reduces the total time that is being required for us to conduct that particular study, and also it is easy for me to manage a less number of people when compared to that of the whole population. And there are four basic probability sampling along with two other methods, and there are four non-probability sampling. The probability sampling methods include simple random sampling, systematic random sampling, stratified random sampling, and cluster random sampling. The other two methods that are included are multi-stage and multi-phase random sampling. The non-probability sampling techniques include the convenience, purposive, quota, and the snowball sampling. These are the references in which we can study about sampling even more in